"If you don't like living with us, you can leave." My sister said it standing in my living room, holding my champagne, surrounded by strangers spilling drinks on my floor. The laughter that followed didn't sound like family. It sounded like victory. I looked at her then, at the house I'd built with my own two hands. Every wall, every detail stolen by people who called it home. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just smiled. Because when they left that night, they had no idea they'd already handed me the one thing I needed most proof. Stay with me because what happened next will make you question what family really means. I had just finished furnishing the apartment 2 weeks before that night. 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, light oak floors that caught the sun like honey. It was the first space that was fully mine, no roommates, no compromises, no one telling me to tone it down. I'd designed every inch myself, matte fixtures, soft lighting walls the color of sand. It looked exactly like the life I'd worked a decade to build, quiet, steady, earned. When my sister Sabrina called, I was sketching a client's kitchen remodel. Her voice was sweet, too sweet. "Just a month," she said. "The contractor said they'll be done by then. You've got 3 bedrooms, right? We'll bring just the essentials." I should have known better. Sabrina's essentials had always come in moving trucks. Growing up, she was the favorite, the one our parents rescued every time she blew something up: credit cards, jobs, relationships. I was the one who cleaned the mess. The last time I lent her money, she bought handbags and told me it was retail therapy. Still, guilt is a strong chain. I said yes. 2 days later, I stood at my window and watched a U-Haul back into the driveway. My heart sank. The doors rolled open to mountains of boxes, toys, plastic bins, even a treadmill. Ethan, her husband, stepped out grinning, holding a game console like it was treasure. Sabrina waved from the passenger seat, her sunglasses catching the light. Surprised, she chirped when they came upstairs. "It's not as much as it looks." By the time the movers left, my minimalist living room looked like a yard sale exploded. She pointed casually. "We'll take the guest room. The kids can have yours. You can use your office for now, right?" I stared at her words, frozen somewhere behind my teeth. Then I nodded because fighting with Sabrina was like shouting into wind, loud, exhausting, and useless. The first week was chaos disguised as family life. Toys on the stairs, crumbs in the couch, crayons on my design drafts. Every morning started with cartoons blaring and ended with dishes stacked like architecture projects gone wrong. Sabrina worked part-time, which really meant brunches and shopping. Ethan took calls in his underwear from my office chair, yelling at some poor co-worker about deadlines while drinking my imported coffee. At night, I'd sit on the tiny cot I'd moved into my studio, the same place I once called my sanctuary. The hum of the refrigerator was the only steady sound left. My own home had become a waiting room I was paying for. One evening I came back from a client meeting to find peanut butter smeared on my white marble counter. Sabrina was painting her nails, scrolling through her phone. "The kids got hungry," she said without looking up. I cleaned in silence, each wipe heavier than the last. When Mom called later, her tone was sharp. "Sabrina says you've been distant. You can't make your sister feel unwelcome. She has enough stress." I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "Sure, Mom. I'll try harder." That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, counting the faint cracks in the plaster the same way I used to count seconds during our childhood fights. Back then, she'd steal my things and Mom would shrug. Now, she was stealing my peace, and everyone still pretended it was fine. I told myself it was temporary, 30 days, maybe 35. I repeated it like a prayer. But deep down, a quieter voice whispered the truth: Sabrina never leaves until someone makes her. And this time, that someone was going to be me. The first real crack appeared on a Tuesday morning. I walked into my kitchen half awake, holding my mug, and nearly slipped on a puddle of orange juice. The kids were chasing each other barefoot, knocking over chairs, screaming like it was a playground. My once quiet penthouse now sounded like a daycare with no supervision. "Where's your mom?" I asked. "She went out," the older one said, not even looking up. "Out, it's 8 a.m. He shrugged. "She said you'd make breakfast." I stood there in my own kitchen, in my own house, and realized I had somehow become the unpaid babysitter. By noon, Sabrina strolled in wearing sunglasses and a shopping bag swinging from her wrist. "You're welcome," she said, dropping a box of pastries on the counter. "For what?" "For breakfast. You didn't have to cook." I stared at her, this woman who could turn any problem into your fault. Sabrina, you can't just disappear in the morning. I work from home. I have clients. You're always working. She cut in like it was an accusation. The kids need attention too. They're your kids. She rolled her eyes the way she used to when we were teenagers and she'd been caught lying. You've always been so uptight, Marisa. Relax. It's family. Family. That word had started to taste bitter. Within weeks, my apartment became unrecognizable. My minimalist shelves bowed under cheap knickknacks Sabrina claimed gave the place warmth. My design books were shoved aside for coloring pages and snack wrappers. Even the air felt different, louder, heavier. Then came the bills. Electricity triple, water double. My cleaning supplies vanished twice as fast. When I confronted her, she shrugged. 4 people use more water than 1, obviously. You're lucky we don't charge you for company. Lucky. Ethan was no better. He turned my office into his gaming corner, complete with snacks and cords tangling across the floor. One afternoon, I found my laptop dead. He'd spilled soda on it and tried to fix it with a towel. Thousands of dollars of client data gone. When I confronted him, he mumbled, "Relax. It's just stuff." That night, I called Tyler, my business partner, and the only person I could vent to without judgment. I swear, I said, pacing the hall, they're turning my home into a landfill. Then stop letting them, he said simply. It's not that easy. They're family. Mom already thinks I'm selfish. Marisa, he sighed. You design spaces for people to breathe. You deserve to breathe in your own house. I knew he was right, but guilt still chained me. Things escalated fast. Sabrina started inviting friends over. Just coffee, she said, but every coffee ended with laughter, crumbs, wine stains, and toys everywhere. One Saturday, I came home from a client site and found 8 people sprawled on my couch watching cartoons and drinking beer. Marisa, she called. We're having a little get-together. A little. My fridge was empty. My backyard smelled like barbecue smoke. That night, after everyone left, I picked up trash until midnight. Beer bottles clinked against the bin like applause for my stupidity. When Mom showed up the next morning carrying a casserole and that look that meant lecture incoming, she said, "You're being too harsh. Your sister just wants her kids to feel normal." Normal? I laughed. They broke my vase, ruined my laptop, and ate through a week of groceries. Mom frowned. It's just things, Marisa. Don't be materialistic. Materialistic. I'd built my life from nothing, brick by brick, design by design, and they called it materialism. That night, I sat by the window watching the city lights. My reflection stared back, tired, angry, small. I realized I'd built this beautiful space not to show off, but to have control, to finally feel safe. And now every piece of that control was slipping away under someone else's feet. The next morning, Sabrina knocked on my door holding a bottle of wine. "Don't be mad," she said sweetly. "I'm planning Ethan's birthday here, just family." I stared at her for a long time, then said the only thing I could. "Do what you want, Sabrina. You always do." I didn't know it then, but that sentence was the last thread holding my silence together. The party would cut it clean in half. The night of the party, I came home to find strangers on my balcony. Loud music spilled from the speaker's base, shaking the floors. Someone had hung gold balloons that spelled out Ethan's birthday across my glass wall, crooked taped right over the clean lines I'd designed. The smell of beer and cheap perfume replaced the candle scents I loved. I froze in the doorway. My minimalist sanctuary looked like a frat house. Sabrina spotted me and waved, holding a champagne glass. "You made it," she shouted like I was a guest in my own home. "Grab a drink. You look so serious." "Serious?" I said, stepping inside. "Sabrina, what is this, a party?" she said, laughing. "Relax. You could use one." People brushed past me, leaving streaks of frosting on the counters. Ethan had music blasting from my Bluetooth system, dancing like he'd paid rent here. One of their friends plopped onto my cream couch with a plate of wings. Grease dripped onto the cushions. I turned off the music. The sudden silence hit like a slap. "Hey," Ethan shouted. "What the hell? This isn't your house," I said quietly. I never agreed to this. Sabrina laughed high and sharp. "Oh, come on. It's one night. You've been such a buzzkill lately. Let us enjoy life for once." "You've been enjoying my life for months," I snapped. "My food, my space, my time." Her smile faltered. "You're overreacting. It's just family." I looked around at the crowd, half of them strangers. "Then where's the family?" For a moment, nobody spoke. Then someone in the back muttered, "Chill, it's just a party." Laughter rippled again. I wanted to scream. Instead, I picked up an empty glass from the counter, rinsed it, and set it back in the cabinet. The sound of glass clinking against glass was the only sound in the room. Sabrina stepped closer. "You really can't stand to see anyone happy, can you?" "Happy," I said. "You call this happy?" She smirked. "If you don't like living with us, you can leave." The words sliced through the air. Someone laughed. Someone else said, "Ouch." My vision tunneled. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I looked at her, the same sister who used to steal my clothes, my money, my peace. And I finally understood she hadn't changed. She'd just grown louder. So I left. No door slam. No dramatic exit. I picked up my keys, my purse, and walked past them like a ghost moving through smoke. The hallway outside was cold and silent. The noise behind me grew muffled like it belonged to another world. I drove to a small hotel 10 blocks away. The clerk barely looked up when I checked in. "Rough night?" he asked. "You have no idea," I said. In the room, I sat on the bed, still hearing echoes of laughter through my skull. I stared at my hands. They were steady. It surprised me, because inside, something had just broken free. I opened my phone and scrolled through old messages, Mom defending Sabrina, Dad staying quiet, Sabrina asking for small favors. It was all the same story, over and over. I'd just been pretending not to see it. The next morning, I drove back. My stomach clenched when I unlocked the door. Silence. Then the smell hit me. Beer sweat, something burned. The living room was wrecked, plates on the floor, a puddle of wine on the rug, one of the kids' toys floating in it like a casualty. My home looked like it had survived a storm. I stood there breathing through my teeth, then walked to the stereo and turned on soft jazz, the kind I used to play when I worked. The melody floated above the mess like a dare. I rolled up my sleeves. Every plate I stacked, every can I tossed, every box I filled with their belongings was a heartbeat steady and controlled. The anger wasn't loud anymore. It was surgical, precise. By the time I finished 4 suitcases and 3 boxes sat neatly by the door, I looked at them at the empty rooms and whispered to the air, "You said if I don't like it, I can leave." I did. Now it's your turn. And for the first time in months, my house exhaled. By noon, I'd packed everything that didn't belong, every toy, every shoe, every thread that screamed of invasion. My place was still messy, but at least it was mine again. The soft hum of the air vent sounded like peace, trying to find its way back home. Then I heard keys at the door. Sabrina walked in first, holding a grocery bag, sunglasses still on, like she didn't expect to find anything wrong. Ethan followed, dragging the kids. He froze when he saw the luggage stacked by the door. "What are you doing?" Sabrina asked, her voice already cracking around the edges. "Packing," I said. "You can't kick us out." I turned calm, but steady. "You told me to leave my own house, remember?" Her face flushed red. I was joking. "No," I said quietly. "You were testing how far you could go. Congratulations, you found the line." The kids looked confused, shifting from foot to foot. I felt a pang of guilt for them, but not enough to stop. "You're unbelievable," she hissed. "You think you're better than everyone because you have a nice apartment and a business. You've always thought that." I smiled just enough to unnerve her. "You think I'm better than you. That's the real problem." Before she could answer, my phone buzzed. A notification from the building manager. Noise complaint investigation complete. Violation confirmed. I'd filed it the night before. Attached was a fine with Sabrina and Ethan's names on it. "Oh, and this," I said, scrolling. "Mrs. Langford from next door sent me the footage from last night. All the noise, the mess, the words you said." Her jaw went slack. "Don't worry," I continued. "I only sent it to Mom and Dad. along with the bills for the last 3 months. "You're sick," she whispered. "No," I said. "I'm done." Ethan finally spoke, voice low. "Where are we supposed to go? I already found you a rental. 2 bedrooms close to the kids' school. First month's paid." I held out the folder. "After that, you're on your own." They just stared at me. Sabrina furious, Ethan humiliated. When my parents called that night, I didn't answer. I let the voicemail play while I folded laundry in the living room. Mom's voice cracked with anger. "You can't throw your sister out like that." I muted the phone and turned up the jazz. For the next few days, the silence was beautiful. The air was lighter. I could hear the city again instead of their noise. I went back to work, catching up on projects I'd almost lost. Tyler dropped by one evening with takeout and 2 bottles of wine. "Looks different," he said, glancing around. "It finally looks like me again." He nodded, then smiled softly. "You look different too." I laughed. Maybe peace has good lighting. 2 days later, I came home from a client meeting to find the apartment empty. Their luggage gone. No note, no goodbye. Just an open window letting in a faint breeze that smelled like rain. I sat on the couch and breathed. For the first time in months, the quiet didn't feel lonely, it felt earned. Weeks passed. Mom didn't call. Dad sent one text, "You could have handled it better." I didn't reply. But time did. What time always does. It softened the noise. A month later, I opened my email to find a message from my landlord. "All outstanding bills have been paid." No signature. Just a receipt. Maybe guilt, maybe pride. I didn't need to know. One evening, as the sun slipped between the towers, I stood by the window, glass of wine in hand, and looked at my reflection. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who used to apologize for taking up space. I whispered to her, "You did it. You took it back." A week later, Mom showed up at my door with a pie. She looked older, softer, tired in a way I recognized. "We were wrong," she said quietly. "Sabrina's with us now. It's chaos." "I'm sorry we didn't listen." I nodded, not angry anymore. "Just done." "You raised me to take care of family," I said. "You forgot to teach her the same." We sat for a while eating pie in silence. When she left, she hugged me longer than she ever had before. After she was gone, I turned off the lights, opened the balcony doors, and let the city sounds drift in. The air smelled like freedom. Sometimes peace doesn't arrive with applause. It arrives in the sound of your own breathing, steady and unshaken, in a home that finally feels like yours again. If you've ever had to draw that line with your own family, you know how heavy it feels until you realize it's the only thing keeping you standing. And if this story hits somewhere close to home, stay a while. There's more where this came from. If you've ever had to stand up to family, tell me your story in the comments. You're not alone, and you're not wrong for choosing peace over chaos. Hit subscribe for more true stories like this one, because sometimes the quietest revenge is finally getting your life back.